Now, in this next section of Module 3, we're going to be looking at customer insights and customer experience. How do we actually develop a better understanding of our customers? Now, research is going to be critical to how we understand our customers, but there's two sorts of research. So in other words, quantitative data that we often get describes what's happening. We can see trends in the marketplace. But the qualitative data shows us why it is happening. And to gain customer insights, what we're looking for is to discover the hidden needs of our customers. And when I say hidden needs, these are often needs that customers don't even recognize themselves. So we're going to look at and explore different methods we can use to gain insights into our customers. Now, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to improve how and why we understand our customers? Well, first of all, multiple studies show that 90+% of innovations fail. That's a huge cost and risk to a business. So what we need to do is develop a more customer-centric approach and explore and use new methods and tools that focus on understanding the customer's goals, needs, and pains. To drive growth, a company needs to replace the goal of maximizing shareholder wealth into a goal of understanding how they better meet customers. Now, one famous little saying here is walk in your customer's shoes. And that comes into a number of different methods that we can use, which we'll explore. So talking about the innovation process. A traditional process primarily focuses at the idea stage and moves it through to various stages of development. But the problem is, unless there is the initial research right at the beginning in terms of the markets, the needs of the market, and developing the market strategy, whatever ideas come up with are essentially done as a market push. What we want to do is we want to transform this so it's an innovation process that's led by customer understanding. Now, in a lot of organizations now, they use a design thinking approach, which basically focuses on the identification of the problems the customer are facing and uses those to inform the ideas that they then generate. If an idea is just taken in isolation, it's got a far higher chance of failure. So how do we do this? Let's first of all look at what we're trying to achieve. Whatever we do in terms of products or services, we want to match that to a customer segment. We also want to understand that customer segment in terms of their needs. By understanding their customer needs, we can then match the service. So needs are a number of different things, and it's often talked about in business in different ways. We can talk about problems, customers that have problems in terms of developing new or changing their business. We can have goals. What's their motivation to change? They might have growth. They might have need to transform a business. And there's this idea of jobs. Jobs is essentially the little tasks or processes that they go through, normally at an operational level, on how they get things done currently that could be improved. Now, there are a number of tools we can use. There are such things as the empathy canvas, which helps us maybe understand and think about our customers in a better way. There's a customer journey map, which helps us understand how people, buyers in particular, come to be aware of our product or service and the experience that they then go through. There's also something that we've developed which is called the customer profile template, which is a systematic way to understand your customers. So what we're trying to do here is really look at the front end of the innovation process, understand the problems, the negative value or impact of that customers have, things that might be hurting their business, causing them not to grow, causing them to lose market share. We will then want to look at what's causing those things and what's the impact on their business. And obviously, as we define this, all these things, and do the research, we can start to identify the problem space. In other words, the areas where we might be able to innovate. Once we've understood that, we can move forward then to creating our solutions. And our solutions then clearly add value. They have a clear set of benefits to the customer. They have a set level of features. And overall, they provide a solution to the problem. So how do we do that? Well, one of the first starting points we can use is by developing a customer profile template. And this is quite a systematic way of understanding our customers. And it has two sides. What we're trying to do is, for a particular customer segment, is to deeply understand who they are, personal insights, what their role is and responsibilities. And that's particularly important in terms of the context of understanding a customer. And then also we want to understand what the decision-making process is. How do they decide to buy? Why do they decide to buy? And of course, once we've got that information, we have a clearer understanding of who we are talking to. Now, moving on from that, we've got very much a profile of the customer, how they sit within the business, and possibly who else is involved in that process. But that's not enough. We need to go further. And to develop a value proposition, what we're really looking for is to understand their goals. What do they want to achieve? What's their motivation to buy a service? Secondly, we want to understand what their problems are. What problems do they have that they're trying to solve? Also, what we need to understand is, what are the triggers? What's actually causing them? What's at this particular moment? What's driving the need to change potentially? And that's where we can define innovation opportunities. Now, this is a filled out profile. It's just a developed example, but it gives you an idea of how you can develop within teams, your innovation teams, a common understanding of a customer. And often when I engage with organisations and we start to talk about the customer, and I talk with different people in organisations, that understanding of a customer can be very different. That in itself causes problems because they don't understand the customer, and therefore everybody's got different ideas of what the problem is that they're trying to solve, or what the goal is that the clients or customer is trying to achieve. By using this, we get a clear picture. Everybody can share it, everybody can focus on it, and everybody can use it to develop business models. So this is a really useful tool and process. What else can we use? One of the things we know is that people don't just buy because of rational things. So in other words, we need to understand the customer in a far, far deeper way. We need to think about what they hear and what information sources they get. What do they see? How do they think and feel about things? And of course, a lot of this is driven by the need to identify their pains, things that cause them, their fears, frustration or obstacles. Now, obstacles can be obstacles in terms of how they get their job done, what's frustrating them, what do they find difficult to do, what's their wants, how do they measure success. So this is a really useful canvas, once you've developed the profile, to dig deeper into what and how they think. Now, the customer buyer journey map is really interesting for a number of different reasons. When people buy, it tends to be over a staged number of decisions. And so what you can do is you can start to look at a buyer right from the early stages of when they're making an inquiry, or there's a trigger to actually change or buy a service. And you can start to understand where they will look. Now, the first thing you have to address is this idea of trust. So if a client's looking for a supplier, trust is the first issue that they need to have confidence. Are you the right company? Can you be trusted? Do you have reviews? Do you have the pedigree? Do you have heritage? And once you understand where they search for that information, you can then seed that information in the right way. And so this takes you through a process from when they first reach out. They want to obviously learn about a new product or service. They then need to evaluate it. They then go through a selection process. Then they start to develop an idea of what and how they need to buy. Then they go through the process of renewing. And those two stages, it's about relationships. People don't just buy just based on features and benefits. So this can be used very much as a marketing tool, but also a tool into developing your services, your customer relationship block, your channel block of the business model canvas, and understanding your customer segment then. So this very much sits around those two areas. And surprisingly, just by focusing on these areas, you can really gain a competitive advantage, often overlooked by a lot of companies. Of course, when we're trying to look at customers, what we're trying to do is gain those insights. And there are lots of different methods. One of the most trusted is to look at interviews. Now, there's different levels of interviews in a company. For instance, somebody who buys might not always be the user of a service. And don't forget that the executive team themselves drive the need for change in a business and the reason to buy. They might be responding to changes in the market or competitive pressures. They set the strategy that the operational teams and managerial teams lower down have to then implement. Often buyers are a more middle management stage, but by understanding the strategic context and interviewing the executive team, you can get a deep level of insight into their strategies, goals and challenges and their future orientation, where they want to be in the future. That in itself gives you ideas for innovation. Then you've got this idea of workshops. And again, this is really important to use at the early stage of problem identification. Now, I'd really encourage you to start to think about actually workshopping things with your clients. Rather than developing ideas or business models in isolation, you could actually involve customers to co-create a business model with you as a solution. Just imagine that. You've got multiple stakeholders from your client who are potentially going to be the end users, helping you evolve your own business model. That can provide deep insights through the conversations and knowledge they share with you. Although we're not going to cover it in depth here, there's a famous framework called Jobs to be Done, JBTT, made famous by Clayton Christian and Tony Alwick. And this really looks at understanding how and what customers currently do and their frustrations as they do their job. We haven't got time to go into it here, but it's a good framework and it provides a high level of context once you've developed a greater level of research. We've already spoken about customer journey mapping and the value that can offer. And then customer surveys. Although customer surveys are often got low rates of response, they're still good for validating your assumptions. Plus, you can use them as a scale. And also do annual reports to find out for yourself some of the trends amongst your customers, what they're thinking. These are some of the ways in which you can actually gain deep levels of insight into your customers. And if you're going to do and develop innovative business models that target your customers, eventually we're always going to be focused on creating value and value propositions and value propositions are new products or services. And inevitably, what we want to do is ensure we reduce the level of risk within our organisation and try and improve our innovation rate of success.